right, welcome to Spice Cabinet Essentials. This is going to be a very short presentation. Oftentimes we have these loaded up spice cabinets with tons and tons of stuff. And to be honest, I find that I'm reaching for the same things over and over again. And most of my spice cabinet goes untouched. Unless you're baking and that sort of thing, which is a whole different set of spices. But for the most part, I'm just going to highlight the spices that I use the most frequently and the things that I'm going to call for throughout the course of this program. And as with everything, the things that you keep in your cabinet might be a little bit different. But if you have no spice cabinet and you're starting from scratch, these would be the things that I recommend picking up. So paprika. Paprika is probably my most used spice. It is sort of a red pepper. You can get it in smoked or you can get it in regular paprika. And it is in a giant jar like this because I use it all the time in everything from Mediterranean to Italian to Indian food. I use this one very, very frequently. Oregano. So this is kind of my most used kind of herb, I would say, mostly because it's used in Mediterranean food and it's used in Mexican food. It's versatile. With my spice cabinet, I want versatile things that are used in a number of different recipes instead of like one herb that's only used in one specific type of food. In that sense, Mexican oregano and Mediterranean oregano are different, but I just use them interchangeably. And that way it's kind of like one spice that I get to use in multiple different areas. Saves me space in my spice cabinet, doesn't clutter things up, right? Chili powder. I use chili powder a lot. Again, I have this big container here because I use it all the time. I like to make a nice chili, classic sort of American chili, and that uses a lot of chili powder, but also I do a lot of Mexican cooking. And this also is something that I'll use in, a variety of different dishes. It adds flavor, but it also adds, a nice little bit of heat. And just be aware that a classic, like sort of Americanized chili powder is usually not just chilies. It's usually like some garlic and spices and that sort of thing. But so don't worry about finding like a pure chili powder. That is more specialized, and I'm not really going to call for that throughout any of the recipes that I do, because this is what most people will find in the supermarket, and this is what most people have in their kitchen, and this is what I use in mine. Ground cumin. So cumin is used in Mexican food. It's used in Indian food and a lot of other different things. So cumin is something it's not my favorite spice, to be honest, but I use it in little bits to add a little bit of a boost to a lot of different dishes. So it is something that I use frequently, and in that sense I keep it around. Italian seasoning blend. So this is just a basic herb blend. I use this in far more than just Italian food. It doesn't have a super robust flavor. To me, it's just got a nice herby flavor. So I'll use this in really any different type of cuisine that I am cooking. Curry powder. So this one's personal for me. I like to do kind of an Indian curry a lot. I'll use this. A lot of Indian dishes have a lot of different spices. And so in that sense, I'd like to use spice blends like a curry powder, because I don't want to fill up my pantry with all these different spices. So curry powder is kind of a blend, and in that sense, it helps me save some space and it helps me call for one ingredient instead of 5 ingredients. And so if you like to cook Indian food at all, well, this is what I use. And I don't know how authentic it is, to be honest, but this is what I reach for, along with garam masala. So garam masala is sort of a Middle Eastern or Indian spice blend, and really flavorful, really, really just smells amazing. One of my favorite spices for sure. And again, this is a blend, which means that instead of calling for 5 spices, I get to call for one spice, and it's going to add a lot of flavor, and it's going to really add a lot of character to kind of certain regions of the world, certain dishes of certain regions of the world. And bay leaves, which is the last one here. So bay leaves, they add flavor mostly to like soups and broths and that sort of thing. And it's going to be sort of a basic flavor. It's not totally necessary. Every recipe I've ever seen for certain soups and broths calls for bay leaves, but I've never felt like, oh, I can taste the bay leaves in this recipe. So it's something that I use often. I'll throw it into every soup or stock or whatever that I'm making, but it's probably not super essential that you have these if you don't already have them. They'll add flavor and they're a nice thing to keep around, and it's easy to just toss a couple leaves into whatever dish that you're making. But, and I should say that traditionally, a lot of traditionalists would say you must use bay leaves in your cooking. And I'm not a traditionalist, so I won't necessarily say that, but it is maybe an important thing to have around, but maybe not totally essential for everybody. And that is the entire presentation. And again, this will be a little bit different depending on the spices that you like to use often and the types of cuisines that you like to cook. And I might call for a few more things in some of the classes throughout the course of this program. But for the most part, these are the spices that I'm going to stick to. I'll throw a couple different ones at you here and there. But I like to keep things simple, and these are the spices that I like to use the most. And so that is what I am recommending for all of you in this program.